Hi, I'm Christy Bishop with Patterson Pope. In this episode of Stuff Matters, we had the privilege of visiting a very unique installation at Wake Forest University. We recently installed the first of its kind in a library archives application. The product is Spacesaver's XTend, mobile high-bay storage system. In this video, you will hear from 3 people who were critical to the success of this project. Mary Beth Locke, Director of Access Services for Z. Smith Reynolds Library, Jim Alty, Associate Vice President for Facilities at Wake Forest University, and Matt Takas, an architect at ESPA Architects, who was the project architect on this endeavor.
We had, prior to moving the things into the high bay, we had a contract with another facility, a commercial facility that we were storing a lot of material with. They were maybe reasonably priced for as far as storage is concerned, but we had to pay not only for the linear feet of being able to hold the content there, but then also every time we needed to retrieve any material from there, there was a charge to be able to pull it from there to deliver it to the library, utilize it. Well, then we would check it out to the faculty member or the grad student that needed it, and then when we returned it, they charged us again. So that was just cost prohibitive. It really wasn't a model that we could continue to be able to use, particularly now where we needed to be able to, we're really looking actively for ways to be able to clear out more space in the library. And so we recognized that was just going to not be able to be sustainable. So it was really important for us to find an alternate way to be able to continue to provide storage for our material that only needed to be retrieved and utilized on occasion. So this is a much better solution for us.
We did. We looked at some static shelving systems that would accommodate some limited number of the volumes that the library needed to store. Most of those options met a limited requirement that the library had. So we really came to the conclusion early on that this mobile shelving system, with not only the ability to move it within the room, but also the high bay capability that it brought to the table, allowed us to store a much greater number of volumes about what the library was looking for. Well, I can't say we ran a cache analysis on this, but what we were looking at was a couple of factors that allowed us to come to this conclusion. One was that we had bought this warehouse with a large open bay space that came as part of the building. The height was 50 some odd feet, which you rarely find in a warehouse in one level like we found here. And the other option was we also had a small footprint within the width and depth of the building to deal with. So as far as the return on investment, I would say it was an optimization was more of what we were looking for than just a pure cash flow or number. But I think the other points that Mary Beth has also brought forward, the accessibility, the convenience of managing it here and not relying on a commercial vendor downtown to store and retrieve our materials, was pretty important to how we wanted to be seen as responsive and available to our constituents on campus. I think all that came together as the reason we chose the system.
Primarily journals, bound journals that are from pre-2000. That we have a number of journal runs where the entire run is actually shelved in here, and we have a small number of book material, but for the most part it's just journals. We also have a lot of archival boxes that have archival materials in them that we have accessioned into the high bay. There is a request mechanism from within our catalog, which is called Voyager, and people they log on, they make the requests, and if the material is that they're asking for is a physical book where they actually need to be able to retrieve the book and take it, then it's Scott's job to go grab it from the high bay. He makes a delivery to campus once a day, so he'll pull the material and deliver it there. But if it's material that's actually coming from a journal volume and all that people need is an article, then he can retrieve that piece, scan it, and then send it to people so that they actually get it sent right to their email inbox, which is greater service than we had when we were using the commercial vendor, because the commercial vendor, they would just retrieve the book and we would have to check it out to them. So we've been able to give better service to the collection than we had before.
Yeah, there certainly were a lot of different design challenges. The shelving system is so unique. Every single person from the design team to the engineers had a hand in truly understanding the shelving system and what the needs were. And it also turned into an education process for our contractors, our subcontractors, our local code officials, because it is a unique project and it has so many different variables that we had to coordinate for this to be a functioning system. So it was a collaborative process, and there were a lot of things that you had to understand to coordinate and make sure it functioned properly for the staff. In terms of what was needed to renovate this space to accommodate the high bay shelving, there were a lot of modifications, not so much from the building envelope standpoint, but internal to the building. There were a lot of criteria that we were trying to meet early on in the project, and specifically environmental factors that we had to maintain, not just throughout different seasons, but year round. So we basically built a room within a room, so every surface was touched surrounding that shelving system.
Speaking to the environmental system that we were talking about, is that it was critically important to control both humidity and temperature. Books are not very don't do very well under conditions where there's high humidity or high temperatures.
They're like a sponge.
Yeah, they just absorb, and they and mold and other considerations that we have to control in the environment so that the books are not going to be exposed in any undesirable way.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only was the system meant to have very, very tight controls on humidity and temperature, it was also important that we also do that with some adjacent spaces where we store other valuable materials. We have an anthropology collection, we have an arts collection. The nice part about this one system is we were able to set it up in such a way that we were able to provide those temperature controls and those humidity controls to a different degree, but also to accommodate books, bones, art, all the materials that we were dealing with. Costumes are coming, that's right. Yeah.
Variety of things.
Well, yeah, certainly. As you can imagine, some other challenges were, when you're storing that amount of volumes and books, structural considerations are a concern. So we inherited this existing warehouse space, and the existing floor was not adequate to support that. So we had to pour an additional slab, a structural slab, on top of the existing slab. And that also helped with the guide wire installation and some other features for rails and all that kind of thing. So, the new slab was required so that we could, structurally support that amount of weight. Yeah, one of the unique features of the system for the retrieval system for the books is a forklift system that when the bays open up and give you access to those aisles, the forklift is centered on a guide wire within each aisle, so it keeps it on course, so to speak, so that you're not getting into situations where you might run off course into the shelving system. So it considers safety in all aspects, and you are retrieving books from above 30 plus feet, 34, 35 feet. So safety was a primary concern. So that guide wire allows folks to enter into the aisle safely, but also recognizes when they're in the aisle so that the system doesn't shut down and keeps them safe. Well, one thing that I would say, just as a piece of advice moving forward, and having learned from this process, I think the most important aspect on this project and a type of project like this with the high bay is to collaborate as early as possible in the project with all the trades, both the engineers, the design team, the code officials, the final end user, the contractor, so that everyone understands the system, because it is such a unique system and there are so many different variables that come into play, that early collaboration on this project proved to be the most successful and rewarding part of this project for me personally.
I would also add one of the advantages that was really attractive to us in adopting the system was the expandability of it. We went in knowing that we weren't going to be able to start off with having all the shelving we needed, but we were able to start off with a significant amount of shelving, and then in the last year and maybe in the next couple of years, we plan on adding more units so that we can then grow the collection off-site as we have here, as we need the space. And I think that's not always the case. As with static systems, you sort of plop it all down, set it up, and then it's not relocatable, not expandable. You're sort of stuck with what you have, and I think that's been a real advantage to what we have for this system as well.
And that was one of the advantages of working with Patterson Pope. Early on in the process, working with Mary Beth and the staff, looking at the current storage needs and what the future capacity would be, and then implementing a phasing plan so that they could build systems and components and expand upon that system as they could afford to.
Our libraries are more dynamic and social and involved spaces now than the days when they may have been just a place to store books and retrieve them. And our students are very much interested in spaces that they can collaborate and work in a more active environment. And at the time we started this project, our library was just congested with shelving and books. I mean, it was packed. And there just wasn't that freedom of space. And as we have moved the books into this new system, it has freed up an enormous amount of space now that we've converted to more social spaces and more engaging spaces that the students are, I could say, just are in love with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll add one other thing. I think that where I see this going in terms of opportunity is we have many other organizations on our campus that have dire archiving or storage needs that have not been met as of this time, and there's opportunity now to consider maybe this system or other variations of this system to meet some of our other archival needs and our other storage needs that would then decongest other parts of our campus for, again, student needs or academic life needs that we're really not doing well with right now. So it opens up an opportunity to give this particular example to, as a physical example, to our campus members and say, look, you can do something like this as well if you have those same storage needs.